Hi friends, welcome back to the Patreon and another bonus video. Thank you so much for being here and supporting me. Your support just keeps me going. It keeps my channel going, keeps me afloat, and it gives me the confidence to keep my channel going because I'm just like you. I'm just another film fan. And today, a film I'm not such a big fan of. I mean, I don't hate this film, but I definitely have a couple of little nitpicks that I want to get into. And usually I don't try and be negative, especially about such a small budget film, and it's filmed in Australia. So, I like to keep this stuff to the Patreon because we're all friends here. And that way anyone who worked in the film as well hopefully doesn't see this video because I feel bad. But I do want to talk about it because a couple of people have asked me. This has been like a highly requested review, and I watched this film with the intention to talk about it. I don't think I had enough to put in a full review, and I really didn't want to pick it apart publicly. I will pick apart some films, but I try and make it a habit not to pick apart independent films unless there's a big reason, because they're just struggling filmmakers, I'm not going to give someone a good mark or anything like that just because they're independent, so don't think that. And also, I will be talking about it in my monthly wrap-up, so it's not like it gets away without me saying anything at all, but I just don't want to focus a lot of negative energy on it. Anyway, let's get into the negative energy. So obviously you can see by the title today we're talking about Bloody Hell, and this is an Australian production it was filmed here. It's set in America and Finland, and even the parts in Finland were filmed here. I'm sure they got external shots because even the Helsinki airport, I have been there, it looked the same. So, and obviously, I don't know, maybe they just got a sign and put it somewhere in Brisbane, but I believe this was filmed on the Gold Coast, so very good work trying to make something, because that's called like the Sunshine Coast, trying to make something in Australia that's really sunny look like something from a Scandinavian country, which is, pretty grim and overcast usually. So good work there. This is an action horror mystery, and it is about a man who goes through like this weird event where, I don't know, he has like a hero complex, I guess. It's a very strange way they set the film up. It goes straight into it, and it does one of those things with the credits where it's kind of like the title sequence, I should say, where it keeps going in and out of like an important scene that you need to know for the film, and then slash back to, hair and makeup back and forth, which I don't mind, but it was like straight into the action, and you weren't too sure how this scene was going to set up the whole film, and yeah, I don't know. It was very odd. So the main character in this film is Rex, played by Ben O'Toole, and he gets himself into this situation, trying not to do spoilers, but I will get into spoilers later. I'll let you know. He gets himself into this situation in this bank. There's like a robbery. I think I can say that much. There's a robbery, and the way he reacts changes his course of his life. But also, he has this whole identity thing where he's almost got like this doppelganger following him around that's his inner thoughts. So you see two of him a lot, and he's having a conversation back and forth with himself, which is not anything groundbreaking. This is done in a lot of horror movies and a lot of, other movies really. And you're quite aware this is not his alter ego, maybe his alter ego, but just him having a conversation back and forth with himself with how he should react to things and holding his anger inside. Anyway, after this situation that happens, he gets, I don't know how this happens, but he turns into the bad guy from what he did. I mean, I get it, but I don't know, it wasn't strong enough for me. And the whole premise around that situation is he was trying to be a savior and save this woman he was interested in. That's all you kind of need to know without me spoiling anything. He decides to flee to Helsinki, Finland, and when he goes there, he flies into his own personal hell. I'm not going to give away too much until we get into the spoiler part, just in case any of you want to watch. My issues in this film, where are my notes? It turns out to be this story that is kind of, it goes in so many several different directions. The meaning behind it, is it about him and his mental health, aka him talking to himself, him and having this savior complex, or him putting other people before himself, aka him saving the woman, because then there's a situation that comes in later. It goes into him having like a little bit of history repeating and deciding to make the same decisions. And I didn't even get that until they said it out loud because the film was so like spread off in different directions. But again, my main issue with the film was the character, because Rex, sure, you know, him reacting to this way in the first strange event that happens is odd. And you want to know why he reacted that way, but you never find out. You never really find out about him as a person, his childhood, his upbringing, and he's meant to be this really crazy, notorious character. From the situation, he gets put on magazines, and he gets followed, paparazzi all over him, but you never actually find out who he is. I don't think he should be defined by this one situation, and it was really hard to follow along and actually care about the character without knowing anything about the character. That was my main issue with the film. Some cool things about the film: I thought the editing was done really well, and I also really liked, as I said, there was a lot of situations with him talking back and forth with himself and having this dialogue, and one of the scenes where they did that, they made him disappear, like his second body, you know what I mean, the second take of him. So obviously when they film these, they do one take of the person standing on this side of the room if they're both in the same frame, and one on the other side, and then they put them together, splice them together. And in one of these scenes, you see him talking to himself, and then you just see him continuing the conversation without the other person in the room. And I don't know, obviously, if they, filmed the second half of the conversation and didn't put it together in the edit and made that choice after filming, or if it was intentional, but it was a really weird moment because you're not meant to be seeing it through anyone else's eyes at that time, and just seeing him having that conversation with himself, I don't know, it just really kind of it broke the effect, but in a cool way for me. I thought that was really interesting done, because all of a sudden he's having all these conversations to himself back and forth, and then all of a sudden he's just standing there talking to himself. And everyone knows he was talking to himself, so it was weird why they decided to put it in there, but I thought it was interesting to make you think. I don't know, it just gave me another layer for a moment. And yeah, I thought that was cool. I haven't seen that done before, where they decide to take someone out unless someone walks into the room and sees them talking to themselves. Does that make sense? I would say a huge reason also I was not into this film was because of the comedic aspect. It was just really like slapstick, silly jokes. And like him with he has like such a big ego, and I don't know, I just didn't find it funny. There was nothing funny in this film at all for me, unfortunately. So it's not my sense of humor, so I can appreciate, obviously I wouldn't like it. I think it's definitely more action based, and with the male like character, I feel like it's more targeted towards men, this film, so I can understand and appreciate that it's probably not my demographic. Another issue I had is, if they're going to do the film based in Australia and then go to Finland, that's another issue, we'll get to that, but why do we have to make it American? Is it for the American audience? I just think at this time, doing such a genre film, people are very open to watching an Australian horror. So I just don't understand why we have to give everyone accents. Ben O'Toole is Australian, and he's from Brisbane, which is around. So Queensland is the state where this was filmed. In Queensland, they have the Gold Coast, which is the Sunshine Coast, and they have Brisbane, if that makes any sense. So I don't know, why do we have to put it in America? I'm sure there's some reason, maybe executive produced or something like that. It just seems like a whole extra step to make the film look American, to make it appeal to Americans. I don't know. I feel like a lot of you guys watching this would be still pretty excited by a film about an Australian who's fleeing to Finland. So I don't understand why that was a difference. Anyway, as well, on that, I felt like the Scandinavian aspect of this was really, really put on and really just silly. Like, it was just over the top. They were all like a family on the bike, and they all had blonde hair and blue eyes, and their house was made out of wood. I don't know, I just felt like it was a caricature of what Finnish people would be, and I feel like we're over these stereotypes. Like, if you didn't make the stereotype when he was in America, why are you making it when you're in Scandinavia? I don't know, it just seems like being Finnish was the punchline, which, I don't know, it was just not my comedy, I guess, but it didn't really work in 2021, you know what I mean? The film also really over-explained certain things. Like, there's a moment where this grandfather clock is about to go off, and they're trying to figure out what time it is, but all they could do is hear this grandfather clock. So they go, okay, now we're going to figure out what time it is. The clock strikes, and then for some reason they also have to repeat, okay, so it's this time, and you hear the clock. I don't know, I know it's like a little tiny nitpick, but why do you need to say the time after the clock chimes the time when the audience is listening? Otherwise, you're just really not letting your audience put together anything. You're not giving them any credit, and you're not really letting them participate in the film by watching it, or like let their brains like work. If they can't figure it out by themselves, maybe they shouldn't be watching the whole film. Maybe they don't understand a storyline. Like, I'm sure they get this. Why do we have to spell everything out over and over? It's more clever just to see, speak with your actions than, having to have heavy dialogue to keep interpreting everything. And that's what the film is all about, because they do have, the alter ego. He's having this heavy dialogue back and forth the whole film and explaining things and over-explaining things. And usually you would see that in a movement, especially in this kind of film where someone's trying to get out of a certain situation. You would see that in the way they act, not in their talk. Tell me with your actions, don't tell me with your words. I'm going to jump into some spoilers now, but I'm just going to give you my rating of the film. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10 for personal. I wasn't a big fan. I will give you my scare and originality, but I don't think it really counts to anything. Originality, maybe 6. I did think it was quite original, but it was all over the place. It was original, but it wasn't. It was like 2 different stories that we've seen before put together. And scare score, I think maybe a 3 for blood and gore, but that's it. That's it for me. Okay, let's jump into the spoilers. If you have seen this film, or if you're not going to watch it, oh my gosh, I have a whole thing written down of this. There was so many weird ass flashbacks that I couldn't get down with. As soon as they lady meets, like the love interest, meets him, she freaks out when she sees him, grabs her brother, who has had like a snapped neck almost by the guy. And then we see this kind of like, I guess it's not really a flashback, it's more of like a flash, I don't know, what is it? Imagination scene, a fantasy scene. And then later he has one about him and his foot. And when he finds his foot in the fridge, he like has this fantasy moment, and it's so dumb. And I maybe not my humor, but I just think it was silly and strange, and they had to show her having that fantasy reaction to him because it made no sense while all of a sudden she snapped and she was in love with him. That was really odd. And then of course there's that situation at the very end where she has like an alter ego moment. That she always had someone she was talking to. I think that's what it's meant to mean. When she like pictures herself killing his friend for touching his hand. I don't know. It was just a little bit elaborate. But it all comes back to the point where I didn't even understand the point of the film, which was him saving the woman at the start, who we don't know their relationship, in the bank, and then later him saving her and deciding to save another woman and putting himself in a situation. I don't understand the meaning of this. He makes it seem like you either kill someone's whole family and save them, or you don't save them at all and they die. That's not how being a hero works. It's saving the person and not, you don't have to kill anyone unless it's self-defense along the way. So that whole thing I didn't even connect the dots until he said, oh, you don't have to save her again. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize this was meant to be the same situation twice. I thought that was odd. I also thought there was a couple of really weird jokes. There was that weird vegan joke, which was so ironic after the situation. He's saying like, oh, vegans are the worst people, as he's taking a woman from a family of cannibals, or like, you know what I mean? Like he was... Okay, yeah, sure, Jen. And then the other weird one was when they were driving in the car away, and she maybe said something about how bad her family was, and he said, oh, well, I talk to myself, so we're all fucked up or whatever. I'm like, not really the same thing. She's literally in a cage in her, dining room, and she's been tortured and abused, and you compare that to talking to yourself. Gosh. I don't know, like the film I just did not get the main character at all. I could not sympathize with him, and I just didn't understand him. He wasn't for me. If they had given him a little bit more of a backstory, they'd taken away the really obvious things, like the clock striking 2 a.m. and then them having to say, okay, that's 2 a.m. the fantasy scenes, all that kind of stuff. Turn down the dialogue, turned up the actions, because people can watch someone escaping from a situation and understand what they're doing. They don't need to be narrated through it. I would have liked the film, I think. I think that there was some cool aspects, and I was going in really looking for something fun, and a lot of people were talking up this film. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, I just couldn't get into any of the characters because you weren't given anything about them, just things that had happened to them, and I needed a little bit more of that. Even the love interest from the start, I guess she's not a love interest, but the bank teller, was it a bank? It was definitely a bank, right? He didn't humanize her at all. Like, you didn't know anything about her except for her name. That is my thoughts on Bloody Hell, which is so interesting that they called it Bloody Hell because it's meant to be Bloody Helsinki, I believe. But bloody hell is also a word that we say in Australian, or a slang term in Australian that we use all the time. It's even in some travel campaigns. So bloody hell. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for being a Patreon. If you've seen the whole film, let me know what you thought down below. Did you like it? If you did, that's totally fine. I want to hear what you have to say, and I will talk to you very soon. Stay spooky.